You can keep sleeping on Xavier Restrepo, if you want to, but the guy just keeps going out there and making plays.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today, we will talk about everything that just happened at Miami's second spring practice. I am Alex Donno. I'm a University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We are free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube, and we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. So, overall, and I talked about this in the quick video recap that Liam and I did earlier today, I thought the energy level was probably even, not to say it wasn't good on Monday, but the energy level was probably a little bit higher even today in the second practice. And a big part of that, because this guy got the entire facility hyped up, was Xavier Restrepo. That was the play of practice, at least the portion that the media gets to watch. We only get to watch, I think, a little bit less than half of practice. But Restrepo, he's running deep one-on-one against Powell, who's a pretty darn good safety who just transferred into Miami from Washington. And it's Cam Ward throwing the football, individual drills. Ward, he launches a very well-thrown deep ball, but Strep had to contort his body and adjust to the football because the coverage was so tight, too tight, in fact. But he had to adjust to the football and makes this acrobatic catch while he's falling to the ground inside the end zone. It got everybody hyped. And not only was it an amazing catch, but he also drew a flag for pass interference on Powell. Powell did everything he could physically to keep Restrepo from catching the ball, and he still did. That was a lot of fun. So, guys, I mean, this is two practices in a row. And again, this is the media viewing period. We can't watch the entire practice, but two straight times, Restrepo, I thought, in terms of receivers, made the best play of the media viewing period, because he had one, and they're both from Cam Ward, by the way. He had one from Ward on Monday where he got way vertical, climbed up the ladder in a way a lot of people don't really appreciate how athletic Restrepo is. And then he had this other one today, which was just incredible concentration, incredible hands to make that catch happen. And, we'll talk about it a little bit more throughout this episode, but you're seeing chemistry developing, I think, pretty quickly with Ward and Restrepo specifically. This was a very good practice for the receiver room. So it's not just Restrepo, but specifically Restrepo, who was Miami's 1,000-yard receiver last year, second ranked receiver in the ACC last season. I know a lot of people were saying, like, oh, now that Tyler Van Dyke is gone, it was Restrepo. It was all Van Dyke and Restrepo. He's not going to do it. Guess what? The common denominator here is Restrepo, because Restrepo, he was Van Dyke's number one target. He's looking like Cam Ward's number one target. Let's just agree that he's the number one target on this Miami Hurricanes football team, and he's practicing really well so far. And Shannon Dawson, the offensive coordinator, he spoke today. He seems pretty pleased with the early chemistry so far between Ward and his pass catchers. And I always make sure to ask Dawson about that, because I can remember when Dawson first arrived last year, he gave me this really good answer about like how long it takes to build chemistry. And once he started to see some of that develop in practice, so he's very much on top of that. So I always like to kind of check in on the quarterback receiver chemistry. And, for what it's worth, I think Miami seems to be a little bit ahead on, again, spring football, let's not jump to too many conclusions. I try not to get overhyped about this stuff, but just, comparing spring this year to the early stages of spring last year, it looks like Miami's probably a little bit ahead of that when it comes to the quarterback receiver connections. Miami's a little bit ahead 2 practices in this year than even where they were, let's say, 3 or 4 practices in last year. So I think Dawson is rightfully pretty happy about that. And again, I thought even beyond Restrepo, this was an especially good day for wide receivers, including JoJo Trader. Josiah Trader, I would never think he's a freshman out there, an early enrollee. In fact, he caught this perfectly thrown deep ball from Ja'Cory Brown. And Trader, listen, Miami's defensive back room in spring is not very deep right now. Trader happened to be going up against the best cover guy, Daryl Porter Jr. Like, yeah, winning a route against DP is not easy, and Trader was able to do that, and he won some good battles today, and it was a very well-thrown deep ball by Jakari. And, yeah, Brown looked really good today in drills. Like, I made a point to watch Jakari a little bit more closely today than I did on Monday because so many people were asking about how Brown is doing, and, he looks a lot, I think, a lot better than he did this time last year, which was a lot better than he looked this time 2 years ago. Like Brown to me can definitely compete in that room. Now, Ward is no doubt the top dog. The pace with which he conducts his drills, the confidence and the accuracy of how Ward pushes the ball downfield. Like there is no question who QB1 is right now, but there's definitely some questions who QB2 is. Because I've seen some good stuff from Brown. I've seen some good stuff from Reese Poffenbarger as well. Emory Williams probably going to redshirt this year. Judd Anderson. Judd Anderson, he holds his own out there. I'm sure his head is spinning being the early enrollee, true freshman, standing 6'7". So he's a tall drink of water out there. But I thought Jakari Brown played really well today. Staying on the young receiving core, Carr, he made a nice grab on a deep throw from Emory Williams. That was right when the media viewing was ending. That was like the last play we got to watch. Carr catches a deep ball. He beat Jadis Richard, who's having, a good offseason so far. Moves really well. He's got really good hands. And, I thought that this was another very good day for Ray Joseph, who, we had Brian Smith on the other day, and he thought Ray was probably the MVP, skill position wise of day one on Monday. I thought Ray had a really good day today, but JoJo Trader, Xavier Restrepo, they had excellent days as well. So far in spring, the first team receivers have appeared to be Jacoby George, no surprise. X, obviously no surprise. And Zay Horton. Isaiah Horton has had some good moments as well, and he's obviously the big-bodied boundary guy standing 6'4". But again, there's definitely competition within that receiver room, and it's a good thing to see because I can remember, maybe not so much last year, but 2 years ago, 2022, going out to practices, and all I saw were drops, right? They cleaned that up significantly last year, and this year you go out there and you actually see receivers looking like a strength on the team rather than a liability on the team, which they seemed to be a couple of years ago. So a lot of credit to Kevin Beard, receivers coach, and of course credit to Mario Cristobal, Dennis Smith, and the recruiting staff and all the hard work that they do. Oh, guys, we have so much more to get to on this episode of Locked On Canes, including Shannon Dawson speaking on his big takeaways from what didn't go so well on offense last year and how Miami can fix that this year, and the aforementioned Xavier Restrepo, who made the play of practice today, talking about life after Tyler Van Dyke, right? Now, and Van Dyke and he are very close, best friends, former roommates and all that. Hopefully he can become BFFs with Cam Ward, but we're going to have Restrepo talking about his, the bond that he's building with Cam Ward and the bond that is now left behind between him and Tyler Van Dyke. So, folks, we have more to talk about, including running backs. Guess who I watched today? TreVonte Citizen. We have more to talk about on this episode right here. You want to keep it locked. We're only getting started on Locked On Canes. Dude, and I'm only getting started with Game Time. Folks, buying last-minute tickets to sporting events, concerts, it used to be a stressful experience. It's no longer with the Game Time app because you're getting the best deals, actually. Last-minute tickets at Game Time. Flash deals. The pricing is incredible. Just download the Game Time app and see it for yourself. Sometimes I wait till the last minute on purpose because I'm thinking I can get an amazing deal at Game Time, and I usually can. The Florida Panthers have become a hot ticket down here in South Florida. The Miami Heat are always a hot ticket. Folks, you can find the best deals on the Game Time app. I love how at Game Time, they got all-in pricing. They don't tack on those hidden fees at the end where you think you're getting a cheap ticket, but then, $20 convenience fee. There's nothing convenient about paying extra fees. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff at Game Time. And guys, most importantly, the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Find out why Game Time is just different. Create an account and redeem code LOCKED ON for $20 off. Again, download the Game Time app, Create an account and redeem code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you so much for making this spring football practice number 2 review of Locked On Canes episode your first listen and your first watch today. We're free wherever you get your podcasts. We're available free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you're an everydayer who wants to take that experience to the next level, guys, I was giving you loads of updates this morning from the indoor facility on the Locked On Canes Insiders chat. You can join that chat by clicking the link in the show description below. Try it free for 14 days. You get text messages directly from my phone to yours and vice versa, practice updates, recruiting scoops, breaking news, all that good stuff. Click the link in the show description below. Try it free for 2 weeks. And then if you like it, after 2 weeks, you can opt in for $4.99 a month. We give you a lot of added value there on Locked On Canes Insiders. So we had a good view today. They mixed it up a little bit. The quarterbacks we were inside the media, and the quarterbacks were outside for the early portion of practice, and that gave us an opportunity to get a really good look at the defensive backs. The DBs were working out right in front of the media sideline. I had a good look at the safeties at first, and I'm liking what I see so far from Powell and Savion Riley, the 2 transfers, Powell from Washington, Riley from Vanderbilt. Obviously, the jury is still out as to whether, can they fill the shoes of Cam Kinchins and James Williams? The jury is very much still out on that. I think with Riley, there's a ton more upside in addition to what he's already proven. And then with Powell being, the 5th-year guy, the grad transfer, and coming from a team that was just national runners-up in college football, I think he's going to add a lot of experience. And they both look the part, right? Both tall, thick, visibly strong, physical presence, mature bodies. So I like what I see there. They're probably the 2 biggest guys in the safety room. Markeith Williams is Miami's tallest safety. He's not as thick yet as the other guys. And I do like what I see from Zaquan Patterson as well. Zaquan, the true freshman, early enrollee, continues to look fluid, does not look out of place with the rest of the group whatsoever. Now, I'm a little bit concerned right now, today. This could change in a couple weeks, but with the cornerback room, because they're missing a lot of bodies at cornerback. And it's one of those things where spring football all around the country, a lot of players are out still nursing injuries from the season. This is also the time of year where if you have some nagging things, you get stuff cleaned up, which is the case with the Maui Noah brothers and AJ Allen. They had, minor procedures for cleanups, and they're missing a little bit of time from what I understand. I think actually they're all going to be out for all of spring from what I understand. So, you've got certain rooms that are very thin, and cornerback is one of those. Okay. I hope we get guys back after spring break, because today the only 4 corners that I saw working drills were Daryl Porter, who's your top guy, Jadis Richard, Demetrius Freeney, and Miles Mu-Young, who I think is a walk-on, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe he's not. Now, Daryl Porter, obviously top dog, and Jadis Richard seems to be, probably the other starter at the moment. Now, that could change when Damari Brown and Robert Stafford get into the mix here. And Daryl Porter, he continues. He told me about this at the autograph signing on Saturday, and he said it again to the media today. Porter spoke today. He continues to speak very highly of how well Jadis Richard is doing in spring. He likes his length as well. So maybe Richard is going to have a really good year, and Porter has another really good year. And I'm not going to have to worry about cornerbacks so much. But honestly, folks, based on how good the receivers are looking right now, and then how thin and young the DBs have been so far, I'm getting the sense that maybe defensive back, not receiver, should be the top priority in the next transfer portal. When the portal opens again in about 5-6 weeks from now, April 15th, maybe Miami starts to look more at the secondary. And yes, I did watch the running backs more today. TreVonte Citizen, I thought he had some good moments. He looks fully healthy. So we're seeing the guys who are getting the most prominent reps right now at running back: Henry Parrish, Chris Johnson Jr., Citizen, and Chris Wheatley-Humphrey is out there as well. Now, based on the type of drills that Miami was running today, a lot of short yardage stuff, I haven't really gotten a sense yet for Wheatley-Humphrey's speed. I know that he and CJ are two of the fastest players on the team. Wheatley Humphrey and Chris Johnson are both track stars out of high school. So, once we get to the point where, if we're able to watch scrimmages and, the spring game coming up, maybe we'll see one of those guys or both of those guys make breakout long touchdowns. But yeah, those are the running backs that are getting most of the work because, right now, AJ Allen is missing spring and Mark Fletcher, obviously coming off the foot injury that we've talked about so much, is missing spring as well. So let's talk offensive line. The O-line, again, hard for me to watch because they are on the far side of the facility. We're on one end of it. The O-line is as far away as they could possibly be. I did get a little bit of a look at Markel Bell, who is an absolute giant. That's the JUCO transfer. He stands 6'8". He's been getting a lot of work in. I don't think he was the first teamer today, but he's been getting work in at right tackle. Of course, CC Maui Noah is out for spring. Today's starting five, just today's, appeared to be Jalen Rivers at left tackle, Luke Cristobal left guard, Zach Carpenter center, Inez Cooper right guard, Matthew McCoy right tackle. And again, take it with a grain of salt. Starting offensive line in spring practice number 2, it's kind of irrelevant, right? Alex Mirabal loves to rotate and cross-train his players a ton. I mean, maybe the only guy who won't cross-train is probably Carpenter, the center. He's probably going to stick to where he is. But and starting right tackle also, it's, your starter, Maui Noah, is not even available right now. That's going to be his job, I believe, once the season starts. So, whatever like the top 5 is in spring, you take it with a grain of salt because they're going to rotate and mix it up a ton. Not an offensive lineman, but I saw him blocking today. Elija Lofton, the freshman tight end. I saw him doing some blocking drills. He's really strong. And I also saw a cool moment when Mario Cristobal was doing some kind of one-on-one technique instruction with him. It's always nice. And we know Mario is very, very hands-on when it comes to the offensive line. He's a former offensive lineman and offensive line coach. He's also a former tight ends coach. And he was doing a little work today. I saw him with Elija Lofton. So I thought that was really cool. And Lofton also, it wasn't just the blocking. He also had a nice catch today in drills. So he can do everything. And another guy that stood out to me just physically, because he's really big, linebacker Adarius Hayes, another true freshman early enrollee. That dude is a specimen. Every bit of the 6'3" of his listed height. And he even, in a couple of drills, he got the better of Zach Carpenter, which, I mean, great for Hayes, maybe not so great for Carpenter, but, Carpenter, I think is, he's hopefully going to be the Matt Lee replacement that we need. He's definitely going to be the starting center this coming year. So, those are my primary observations from practice. I have some videos I want to incorporate into this episode post-practice. I thought a really good question was asked to Shannon Dawson. The offensive coordinator spoke today. Gary Furman from Kane Sport asked him this question about, and he gave a really good answer on it. I didn't know how deep he was going to go with this, but Dawson was asked what his kind of big picture impressions were on the offense last year, which was a mixed bag, right? Miami put up some good offensive stats, but way too many turnovers, not enough points in certain games, not enough wins overall. So Dawson reflected on last year's offense, and he explained how Miami can get better. Like, what's it going to take to get Miami's offense better this year?
Really, I look at things in a different way. It's not a different way than anybody looks, but my year-to-year comparison is pretty clear about what we did good and very clear about what we did bad, right? We took huge jumps in a lot of categories. I think it was like 100 or 99 to 22 in yards per play, which is probably the biggest jump I've ever had in a year. And a lot of the rushing per game was in the 30s, I think mid-30s. Passing was mid-30s. Offense, we were hovering around 30 or 25, right? From like 80 or whatever. So huge jumps in a lot of things. Turnovers were glaring, right? Turnovers were glaring. Not only were they glaring when they happened. So the two situations that we didn't get better in, it may probably almost stayed the same or maybe went down a couple notches, was turnovers and red zone offense. But they kind of go together because if you look at red zone offense, I mean, we got down there about top 35 in the nation 50 or 60 times, right? The teams that were in the top 10 in the nation, you can tell I studied this a lot, but the teams that are top 10 in the nation, right, there's one clear thing they didn't do is they didn't turn it over down there. We turned it over 7 times down there, 2 times on the 1 yard line, right? And we turned it over a couple times right before there. And so what that does is take points off the scoreboard. Not only does it like crush your morale and all the rest, right? It takes points off the scoreboard. And so ultimately we have to do a better job of protecting the football.
Made a lot of sense there. It's Miami's OC, Shannon Dawson, because, no matter how much better Miami got in certain categories, yards, I didn't realize how big of a jump they made in yards per play, but he's right about that. I double-checked that huge jump in yards per play and a bunch of other stats, but so much self-sabotage when it came to the turnovers. And it wasn't just interceptions, although, Van Dyke that's his signature move, the interception. There was a lot of those last year, some untimely fumbles as well, which translated to a lot of missed opportunities and turnovers in the red zone. And no matter how good you are at racking up yardage and yards per play, yards per carry, all that stuff, no matter how much better you get with that stuff, if you're turning the football over, especially in the red zone, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. The self-sabotage was way too much. And, Dawson also talked a little bit about the good and the not so good with Cam Ward. Obviously, most of it's good, but the not so good would be his fumbling history. And Dawson seems to have like a really good grasp on why Ward has fumbled so much. And he mentioned that it's not really like so much a ball security issue in terms of mechanics. It's more of a focus issue. So Dawson thinks he's identified, and I'm sure maybe he didn't want to say it outright because he didn't want to throw shade at Washington State. I also think it was an offensive line issue because Washington State got him sacked 36 times last year and hit count, which is going to contribute to fumbling. But talking about focus more so than actual ball security mechanics. So it seems like Dawson at least feels like he's identified, any sort of weakness that Cam Ward has had when it comes to fumbling the football. Here was something else that Dawson talked about Cam Ward, because, spring football, no contact right now, the type of drills Miami's running, we haven't really seen Ward running. But here's Dawson on the sense he's getting on Cam Ward's ability to run the football.
Maybe organically he will be. I mean, there was a couple times today that he scrambled and you could see that he could get 15, 20 or so yards. The biggest deal with me is the scrambling and keeping your eyes down the field and throwing, right? Just extending plays. And that's really where the game is played today, because D linemen are so good, coverages are so complex that you're going to have, if you have 80 snaps a game and you throw it 50, there's probably going to be 10 snaps a game where everybody's covered or protection breaks down, right? You'd like for those 10 plays not to be just something that kills you. Does that make sense? And so ultimately, I do think that he has the ability to get out of trouble and save plays, which to me is liberating when you call plays, because you really don't think about like, oh, they could be this or it could be that. It's like, oh, man, if we get in the worst case scenario, he could probably save it, right?
Thankfully, those are things that Ward has been historically good at. Extending plays, not necessarily running, but extending plays, getting outside the pocket, keeping his eyes downfield, and throwing accurate passes. Those are things that Ward has been good at. And again, a guy who's going to be on the receiving end of a lot of those is Xavier Restrepo. Coming up next, we'll hear Restrepo's thoughts on his best friend, former roommate, Tyler Van Dyke, no longer on the team. Restrepo's moving forward. We'll talk more about that when we come back. My friends, you know what you want to do? You want to keep it locked right here on this brand new practice number 2 review episode of Locked On Canes. And I already know you're keeping it locked to eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We're free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV Channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV Channels app. So, again, I thought it was a really good day overall for the receivers. Xavier Restrepo made the play of practice, at least the media portion of practice, just contorting his body and showing just so much focus and great hands to haul in a deep ball from Cam Ward with Powell draped all over him. Actually earned a pass interference penalty. Restrepo still caught it in the end zone. That was a great play. So I thought this was really funny and cool the way that he answered this. You might chuckle a little bit when the part of this when Restrepo is asked what it's like no longer having Tyler Van Dyke, his good friend and former quarterback on the team. So I thought he answered that very well. But before that, Restrepo was asked about the work ethic of Cam Ward and the relationship that he and the receivers are building so far with their new QB1.
He and all the quarterbacks have this, work ethic that, is just contagious, you know what I'm saying? We all want to be around them all day, every day, whether that's film room, weight room, out here just chilling, hanging at the house, whatever, Again, they just have contagious, characteristics about them, and, we just love being around them.
Your best friend left, or had to leave, left, whatever, however you want to put it. Couldn't not have been an easy situation for you. How did you work through that? How has it impacted your outlook coming into this year, and your ability to embrace the next guy coming in who looks like he's pretty good?
Right. I mean, he's not my girlfriend or anything, So yeah. I mean, I'm not crying about it, But definitely, he was my guy. I wish all the best luck to him. He's going to do great over there at Wisconsin. But again, the quarterbacks over here that came in, getting along with them really well, on and off the field. So again, I'm just super excited for what's our next practice, Friday. Super excited for Friday.
He's not my girlfriend or anything. I love that. Oh yeah, we've all had friends, move away or spend time. It's not that big of a deal. And you know what? I don't care how close they are off the field, although I prefer if they're close because that usually translates on the field. But I need Restrepo to be BFFs on the field with Cam Ward. And I like Restrepo's attitude. Javion Cohen shouted him out at the scouting combine, singling out, hey, Restrepo is a guy you're going to be seeing here next year at the NFL combine. This is, Restrepo's final year of eligibility at Miami. And X was really appreciative of Javo's shout out. I think that's what they call him, Javo. And X also, he didn't bring this up out of the blue. I think somebody asked him about it, but he understands that a lot of people doubt him. He doesn't really understand why. I mean, my theory is I think people just he's an underdog because, he's undersized compared to what most people imagine like a top wide receiver should look like. He doesn't play like an undersized guy, but, he knows that he has doubters out there, and he really seems to use that as motivation and the chip on the shoulder. And he's got a good attitude about it. You're not going to find too many players that work harder than Xavier Restrepo does. So fun practice today. Miami's going to be back at it on Friday. So even though there's no practice tomorrow, we're obviously going to have a show. Larry Bluestein's going to join us tomorrow. Our boy Blue is going to join us. We're going to talk not only about Miami on the field, but the recruiting efforts as well. You know who I saw in the indoor facility today? I know that there were a lot of recruits there, but a lot of them were kind of separated from where the media was. One guy that I did see, he and his dad, Dia Bell, 2026 American Heritage blue chip quarterback, Dia Bell, and his dad, Raja, former NBA star Raja Bell. They were visiting today. So hopefully Dia had a really good time. And on Friday, there's going to be a ton of visitors. Remember, Monday, we're going to talk with 4-star cornerback Jalen Hollywood Bell, who's down from Georgia. He's going to be visiting on Friday. We're going to talk to him Monday to review his Miami unofficial visit and everything that went into that. So thank you guys so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. If you're watching on YouTube, Smash that like button. Subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to the audio version, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Canes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods, and leave us a 5-star rating and review if you'd like. And we'll talk to you again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.